How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of the newly resurrected Draw Talk, the series where I just talk about anything drawing related whilst I do some drawing. That is the new format we're taking with this, and so today I'm going to talk a bit about how I learned to draw. And so with that being said, we haven't said this in a while, but roll the intro. Okay, so let's talk about how I learned how to draw. Firstly, I was always interested in drawing, so I'd spend a lot of time doing it through my childhood, and when I think back, I can't really remember ever not drawing, but there was probably a point in time where I wasn't exactly good at it, because of course everyone starts off in the same position, having to go through that process of trying to learn and practice, but at a young age I would just spend more time drawing for enjoyment rather than worrying about if my drawings were good. So because I was drawing a lot and practicing consistently, I naturally improved over time. I became more experienced and more comfortable with what it was I was actually drawing. As a kid, I was always drawing my favourite cartoon characters and anything that I found interesting. I'd set out to draw these as best as I could, but I suppose in some way it was the process of drawing it which I actually enjoyed the most. For a young kid, it gave me the opportunity to recreate my favourite things on paper, and I enjoyed seeing the resultant images of things that I could relate to, as well as actually drawing it in the first place. I think that's what a lot of children do as they grow up. Every child likes to draw, and eventually they end up wanting to draw things they can relate to. And it's at this point when a child maybe becomes a bit discouraged and stops drawing because they struggle to draw things how they are supposed to look, and in turn they see themselves as not being good at drawing because of that. That is at least something that I experienced when I was practicing. If I was to draw something like a cartoon character, I'd aim to draw it the best that I could and capture the likeness of that character, but if, for instance, I maybe didn't do that too well, then I'd be under this illusion that the drawing isn't a successful drawing, and there'd be a lot of people who would also set out to create drawings, and if it didn't look correctly as the actual reference or something they was trying to draw, then they'd think that the drawing was bad. It's almost like this mindset that can be quite frustrating if you are learning how to draw, and you have to almost look at these situations in a different light. For instance, if you are drawing something and it doesn't end up looking like it should, don't consider it to be an unsuccessful drawing. Think of it as being more of a step forward and a way that you can then improve and learn from. So look at the mistakes, analyse your work, and then move on and try again and see if you can improve on the things that you maybe struggled with in the last attempt. And as long as you are spending time drawing, then naturally you will be improving and working on your drawing ability. So don't worry about the actual outcome, instead just try and spend a lot of time drawing and focus on the process of learning. But going back to the subject where I was talking about growing up and drawing as a kid, how sometimes we can be discouraged if our drawings don't look like we want them to, and then as a result of that we maybe stop drawing completely because we come to this conclusion that drawing might not be for us. On the other hand of that, there are children who maybe have more practice or find something else in drawing that keeps them doing it. It might be a talent, but I don't like to throw that word around too much because if there is some form of talent, it can only do so much. But that's a different topic altogether, and one that I'll most likely discuss in a future video. However, going back to what I was talking about, I was the type of child that kept on drawing, even when I wasn't happy with it and what I would draw. I'd just start again and aim to do it better next time. It was a challenge for me to draw all of these different things. I'd also enjoy showing people my work, in hopes of getting a good response out of them once they had seen what I had created, and in some way that helped push me forward. It was motivating me to always create better things. So if I was to go ahead and answer the question, how did I learn how to draw, then I'd say that just being obsessed and wanting to draw all of the time naturally helped me to learn new things. It was something that I carried on through school, and as I was growing older, the drawings and things I was making was also changing as well. I started to do a lot of design work for other subjects, and so I was still learning different drawing aspects. I also came across some hyper-realistic drawings online, and in some way that inspired me to try and create work on that level. I'm not sure why I had the mindset to draw as realistic as possible. I guess at that time it was a style of working that I wanted to strive for, and so with every drawing I would try and better myself. It was pretty much like a goal to make every drawing better than the last one, and over time it came to a point where I was confidently drawing with a realistic style, and so I decided to start finding the next thing to explore. Although it doesn't directly relate to drawing, I decided to start a YouTube channel and make videos around the subject. Filming and video making is a form of art and expression in itself, and so I started to really take a liking to it. I started to put a lot of time into focusing on learning more about the technology and the software. Alongside this, I was learning how to use my drawing skills and apply them to other subjects like architecture. I had all of these new subjects around me, and I started to learn a lot about different elements of drawing and just started to immerse myself in everything creative. I started to learn more by looking at other artists, paying attention to all of the things that make up a successful drawing, also looking at my weaknesses and trying to work on them, and I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I have learned everything. There is so much involved and so many things to learn when it comes to drawing, and that's what makes it exciting. I'm still learning, and just like when I used to attempt a drawing as a kid, I'm going to keep going with it. So although I'm taking a more personal approach to discuss the subject of this video, if I was to give someone some advice on how they should learn to draw, I'd say that first of all, you need to want to do it. You need to want to be drawing whenever you get a chance. Just enjoy the act of drawing and start getting a feel for it. Draw anything you want in any way. Don't worry about how the drawing appears, instead just keep on drawing. Doing something is better than doing nothing, and from doing that you will learn more about your drawing ability and give yourself a starting point. A point where you can then find the things that you want to work on. You should try and analyse your work and honestly recognise the areas you need to improve in. Going back to when I would draw as a kid, I remember drawing the same things over and over again, and with each attempt I would always look at what I could do better and then take that into consideration with the next one. Sometimes this would lead me to wanting to study perspective more or creating textures, and so I would set myself further goals of working on those areas before then coming back to the drawing and going again. Analysing your own work can be really beneficial, but you need to be able to recognise what it is that you need to work on. This can be tricky for a beginner, and so sometimes looking at other professionals and more experienced artists and analysing their work can help you to learn how and what you need to do in your own drawings. However, don't compare yourself and your work to others in a way that will discourage you. Instead, recognise the fact that you are learning and take advantage of it. Now, of course, when you are learning to draw, underlining everything will be the drawing fundamentals. This includes perspective, which from experience I have learnt to be one of the most vital elements involved in drawing, and this might be a good time to say that I've recently started to cover perspective in some tutorials. This drawing which I'm creating in this video was first planned and outlined in perspective. It's a simple method of using one vanishing point from this top-down view, but it's effective, especially once the detail and the textures have been added. I'll talk more about this drawing in the next episode. However, when it comes to perspective, without it you will struggle to draw anything. Then of course there are other fundamentals, anatomy, light and shadow, but don't let all of this overwhelm you. You don't have to tackle it all at once, just take your time with it and also try to figure out what will be most important to you in terms of what it is that you want to draw and what you will be creating. When I was drawing at a young age, I didn't really have a concern with these fundamentals. However, eventually I realised that they allow you to really improve your work in other directions, and I started to pay more attention to them, and I'm still learning them. They can seem like a boring and tedious part of drawing, but you will benefit a lot from a basic understanding of them when you want to draw anything. When I said figure out which ones are going to be more useful for you in terms of your work and what you will be creating, an example for instance is if you are mainly interested in creating realistic drawings like portraits or landscapes, which involve mainly working from a reference image, then you might benefit more from focusing on creating textures and details, the actual techniques you use to recreate these images. On the other hand, if you want to explore character design and focus on more imaginative work, then anatomy, perspective, and most of the fundamentals will be needed. And all of this will require lots of practice, but don't think that you need to learn all of it before you start drawing, because we learn all of these things from actually drawing. And what I mean by that is that you should just start drawing and make mistakes, then recognise those mistakes, whatever that might be. If it's in terms of perspective, for instance, it will give you a starting point to then go and learn more about that, before then correcting it or drawing again. It's a constant cycle of drawing and learning, and there isn't an end point. I made a video titled The Process of Learning How to Draw, where I discussed this subject, talking about how there will always be more to learn and improve on, and overall that's what makes drawing exciting. Through this Draw Talk series, I'll be discussing a lot of drawing related subjects that will sometimes seem to overlap and relate to each other. And I'm also going to talk about my own experience and things that have helped me in hopes of helping others. Also, as we come to an end, it might seem like I'm drawing pretty random stuff in these videos, but it's all for a reason. I have ideas. So there we go, that pretty much concludes this first episode of Draw Talk. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, then please give it a like because it really helps me out. And in terms of the artwork that you've seen me creating on screen in this video, I'll be finishing that off in a later video or something, so be sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date. But with that being said, thank you for watching today, and I'll see you in the next one.